研ぎ澄まされた時の流れ感じてときめきへと動き出す世界は忘れかけてた
Show on the road.
Let's get this show on the road.
Because today we have a first time ever special guest on the book pod. How about you introduce this special guest in your own way?
Well, I'm going to start with the blame game because my sister Margie told me about this book that we may be interested in. And, it's got a Japanese, a teenager who returns to Japan after living in the United States. So we might be interested in that. And it's by a Japanese-American author named Ruth Ozeki. It's called A Tale for the Time Being. And it's got the little penguin on the book there, Joe. So I know that it is penguin approved. So Joe just learned that these penguin books, they're the real deal. So I bit this off. It's a rather lengthy book, including a few appendices, and read it. I was a trooper. I read it. Because I usually finish books, so I finished this one, A Tale for the Time Being.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time, the book pod, J&M or M&J's book pod, is having a guest speaker. Has no responsibilities except to chime in. She's not responsible for carrying anything, but just to chime in. It's very informal and casual. My sister, Margie.
Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah. If you're on mic, there is responsibility. So yeah, that's not...
but
pressure.
You don't have to, you're not in charge or anything, but there is pressure. Yeah.
So thank you for joining, Margie. How are you?
I'm very well now that we've finally proceeded, but I prepared for this as if it were an exam. So I believe I'm totally ready for anything you've got for me. But yes, I will stand by the side. I thought you might be interested in the book. I certainly liked it. But we'll see what you have to say.
Okay.
Well,
you certainly will.
test preparing. That is a very Japanese of you to do in this book, because life is tests.
Life is tests
here. I read it, and I would say my word would be kind of lopsided. My word. Because it's like two halves of a story. One is a young girl in Japan, and the other is like a struggling writer who is reading about the young girl. And
so let's do a little summarizing here. So the story is about two women, one Japanese American. The Japanese character is named Now, which is kind of interesting because, with the title, A Tale for the Time Being, there's going to be a whole time thing reference going on. And she's a teenager who's recently returned to Japan from a rather lengthy stay in Sunnyvale, California, where her father was in the tech industry until the bubble burst. And, what we learn is that he lost his job and they had to return to Japan, which is never a good thing for a teenage girl in particular. And we know this because the Japanese American character, Ruth, who lives in the very remote Vancouver Island in Canada, found on the beach a carefully wrapped up, sealed in a Hello Kitty lunchbox diary written by this character in Japan, Now. And so that's how we know Nao's story. We read her diary through the Japanese American character whose name is Ruth, who is a published novelist who currently has writing block. And she's found this package on the beach and decides to read this diary, which is written in English because now spent several years in Sunnyvale, but it's peppered with Japanese as well. And she decides to read it as Now wrote it. She doesn't just read through it from beginning to end. She paces herself and reads it rather slowly, which is the first thing that drives me crazy. But as she is reading, we get to see what goes on in Now's life and what goes on in Ruth's life. Is it Ruth? Yeah, her name is Ruth, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it's the name of the author, now Ruth. So we get these two stories going on, but I think maybe Joe's reference to lopsidedness is that the Now story kind of takes over, and Ruth's story pretty much fades into the background by the end of the book, seemed to me.
Yeah, I found myself sprinting through those Ruth chapters where just like they're broken into little chapters or units of, Ruth part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it'd be like Ruth makes a cup of tea. Number 2.
There's a power outage.
Yeah, she goes into the kitchen and looks at her cat, and I'm like, all right, what's and also I didn't like her husband was like annoying. He was like this kind of, I don't know. I don't even remember him, but I was like,
he was on the spectrum. Why? I don't know, but he was on the spectrum. He, and Ruth was a urbanite. She was in New York City, but her husband, Oliver, got ill in New York City. So they moved to this remote area. He's an environmentalist where he could live. He could live there. He couldn't live in New York City. So she goes there, lives in this remote area where there are repeated, contrived power outages every other day, storms, and just when she's on the brink of finding something out about her research, there's a power outage and she's blocked. So the two lives, what I can see with the two lives, with Now returning to a Japanese junior high school of all things, where all the hierarchy is set, and this girl is ruthlessly and cruelly, and I want to say unbelievably tortured and teased and mocked and bullied, makes her an outsider. And she's an outsider already because she didn't stay in the cohort the whole way through school. And so is Ruth. Ruth is kind of an outsider where she's living in this remote Vancouver Island as well. So they have that much in common. And the further Ruth goes into the diary and the more research she decides to do about this apparently famous family, she sort of the diary seems to take over more and more, and Ruth's life itself sort of fades into the background, and she becomes rather obsessed with this.
Yeah, so that's like the summary of it. Those two kind of competing storylines for my attention. But yeah, that's a good point. About one thing that was very strange was that talk about how she's bullied so much in school that even like the teachers are in on it, and I'm kind of like, what?
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, that's where I started to get the feeling like, okay, this is like because even I couldn't believe like bullying is a big thing, but it's also because so many just aren't equipped to even like stand up for themselves. There's a whole thing of like just suffer for now until later, and later might be just forever until you're dead. But yeah, it's kind of like literally every person is like pinching her and like stabbing her and like I don't know, it seemed kind of like outsiders had heard a horror story that went through the telephone game of like, oh yeah, then even the teachers did it. She's like, what? Is that for real? Oh yeah. Oh, I gotta put that in the book. But I kind of couldn't believe that.
It was unbelievable, the degree of bullying and the inclusion of the teacher being involved in it as well. Not literally involved in it, but looking the other way and not taking steps. And when her mother decides she's going to go talk to them, which of course is the worst thing that the mother can do in Japanese society, then things just get worse. And she's bullied so badly that they just ignore her, and in fact have a mock funeral for her. And this is the ultimate ostracizing of somebody that's a teenager.
Yeah, that's like this is not normal human behavior. Having a funeral for someone who's alive.
And present. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It also just kind of dwelled on the seamier side of Japanese society, with talking about the hostess bars and the love hotels and the salarymen, and it's all that seamier side. And I'm not exactly sure why.
Yeah. That's kind of that. Yeah, it had that flavor of like the underbelly of Japan, which there is.
Which exists, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
But what do you think, Margie? Let's get Margie in on this. Were you seduced by the salacious passages of the Japanese culture?
No, I was not seduced by that, but I was curious, which is why I wanted to get your take on it. I mean, it probably is an exaggeration, but yet it exists. But in the author's defense, the young woman has had a very kind of a life of abuse. And first of all, an adolescent is very completely self-centered anyway, totally self-centered.
Yep.
And focused on herself and probably prone to exaggeration. She has a father who's suicidal. Mm-hmm. She has a mother who's non-existent. And so you can see where her writing becomes very, very exaggerated from only her point of view and from only her very neglected, insecure, and herself suicidal point of view. So I'm accounting for all of that. It's not a normal teenager in a normal school in a normal family.
No, not at all.
Whoa.
And I would agree that the book is lopsided, and I believe it's better for it, and it's meant to be. Mm-hmm. In painting, I'm a realistic painter, and all my teachers constantly say, who is the star of the show in this painting? Because you need to have a focal point. If the bridge is the star of the show, the trees are supposed to be blurry. If the bridge is the star of if the trees are the star, they're painted in great detail. If the bridge is the star, it's painted in great detail. If you paint everything in great detail, there's no focal point. Mm-hmm. There's no star. So I understand that. Her mother is non-existent, and Ruth's husband is practically non-existent, and Ruth herself is practically non-existent because they are not the stars of the show. The star is the young woman, and the star is relationship. And what drew me into the story right off the bat was the relationship between the two people, the two women, the girl and the woman. And it was almost like the girl.
We're talking about her great grandmother, Jiko.
No, I'm not talking about the grandmother. I'm talking about the young girl and Ruth, the finder of the diary.
Okay.
And the way the young girl writes right off the bat is shocking to me, because she's just a brat, and she just doesn't know a thing. But still, it's very easy to read. It's very clear. It's very easy to read. And she is writing directly to whoever that reader is, almost as if she knows who she is. And then Ruth believes every word of this young girl almost as if she knows she isn't. Right away, it was surreal for me. It was like, okay, she's creating the reader, or is the reader creating the writer? I mean, what is going on here? So I found it kind of fascinating for that reason. Even though I didn't like the character of now, she is who the book was about, really.
Absolutely.
And,
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. So the fact that the others fade into the background, even Ruth is not important. She's just the teller. She's just the narrator and the future writer of this story.
Yeah. And I see your point about Ruth being now being the main character. Absolutely. And she's the one that's in greatest relief. Because she's in control of the story. Absolutely. And I see what you mean about Ruth being the book being about the relationship between Ruth and now, because you're right, she does address the recipient of this journal on page 1, 3/4, almost to the bottom. She says, when she's addressing in the first person, do you have a cat? And is she sitting on your lap? Does her forehead smell like cedar trees and fresh, sweet air? And guess what? The last page of the book is Ruth writing to Now, and her last words are, P.S. I do have a cat. This is on page 403. I do have a cat, and he's sitting on my lap, and his forehead smells like cedar trees and fresh, sweet air. How did you know? So you caught on to the surreal aspect of the story way ahead of me. I was so put off by the depths of, I don't want to say the depths of depravity, but this really wading into the, seamier side of Japanese society by this teenage girl who then says, but I didn't want to start it like this. Then my comment in the margin is, then why did you? That's exactly what you did. You started it with all this, hentai and snuff stuff and horrible, abuse in a sexual setting. But it is about the relationship between these two women being outsiders in their own. And I think that somehow the end result, I suppose, is that Now inspires Ruth to write. And, the stuff that Now goes through, she claims that she's going to write in this diary all about her great-grandmother, Jiko. That's why I thought you were talking about her relationship. Because she's the most influential in Now's life, I think. But she never does. She only talks about herself. But at the end of her travails, then she says, well, yeah, I'm going to really write about my great-grandmother now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but a lot of the book is about the great-grandmother.
Yeah, most of the book is about the great-grandmother and the great-grandmother's influence on Now.
Yeah.
And I really strongly object to the mother fading into the background. Okay, so here's all through this book, I'm thinking, the mother's never mentioned. And yet, she's the one that when they come back from Sunnyvale, she gets a full-time job. At age 39, she becomes an office lady, which is absolutely unheard of. Impossible. I mean,
in Japan.
For a 39-year-old woman to get an office job, no way. But she does. She supports the family. And she sort of holds up her husband. She's the one that calls Jiko to come to Tokyo to talk to her grandson about shape up, stop these fake suicide attempts. And, we're going to take Now to the temple. That's the mother arranges that. And then when they go to much later, when they go to Jiko's funeral, guess who brings them clean clothes? The mother brings them clean clothes. So even though she seems non-existent, it's because Now doesn't acknowledge that she's supporting the family financially and she's in the background, but she's doing her work. She's doing, she's holding that family together.
Yeah, okay. I agree. When I wrote a note that said, what did I not like about the book? And it was the fact that the mother was so invisible. Because I'm a mother, and it's like, come on, she's the one holding everything together. But because I don't believe the girl existed at all, because I believe the entire book was written by Ruth, the whole thing is her imagination, and she ended up writing this book. The mother was not key to the plot. The plot had to do with the girl, her father, her uncle, her grandmother, that chain right there. And so the mother didn't figure into that.
No, not at all.
I got, maybe it's because I'm meditating a lot by it, but there is something to this vibrations or feelings or communications that are parallel universes and, all that mumbo jumbo that I used to say was mumbo jumbo. And now I'm beginning to believe some of it. So that's why I was so open to this book. I mean, obviously, if Ruth was able to get word back in time and over space to do some good to the young girl's life who lived 10 years earlier. I mean, that whole thing is fantasy. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I don't like reading fantasy, and I can't stand science fiction, but I liked this book
Uh-huh.
because I do believe, because it's so zen, and I do believe could happen. Could happen.
So
could
wait,
happen, couldn't happen, no difference, same thing.
Yeah.
so
And I thought that Ruth maybe was the girl at first. And then I thought that the girl was Ruth's child in another
Her daughter,
form, some
yeah.
child she never had. I mean, I was open to all of that.
so now
So, and by the time something surreal did happen, I was so sucked in by then that I wanted something to happen. I mean, somebody had to do something for this girl. So I was, totally vulnerable to just believing all of that because it happened so late in the story.
So late, all the magical realism occurs.
Yeah.
So
Which I also
going back to what Margie said before, might have blown my mind wide open on this this story. That wait, did I forget what it was? The girl is writing this diary, and she has, of course, like a perspective that's exaggerated and overblown. And you said, which one? I had this idea. Wait, is that what you mean? What if there's a plain, boring young person? She thinks nobody cares about me, and I'm gonna write this extraordinary story of my hardship. And because nobody around me really cares about it, I'm gonna also write this foreign Seattle person who finds me and is interested because of the whole Fukushima disaster. That whole thing is played, like, kind of peppered in, like, is this nuclear? Is there like a radiation on it or whatever? Yeah, that'll be good. Like, there's lots of that's what was kind of wrinkling my nose about all these things that do catch the scent of the foreign person, of like, maid cafe, Fukushima, weird
tsunami.
Tsunami and suicide and bullying and like torture and just walking
kamikaze pilots,
walking to your own terrible fate. But so then I, just as Margie was talking, I thought, what if maybe I see that she's gonna write this extraordinary version with these typical cliche elements in, but the real stuff was the grandmother, and also like the perspective of I thought the core of it, what it finally got to the point, was the reflections of the suicide pilot, who was like an educated person, a student, but was just thrown away or thrown into a meat grinder, and just how idiotic that is. Like, that was the kind of joke of it, where around it is all this then she loses her virginity and in the worst way, and then she's got like a pimp, and then she has a funeral, and her dad wants to commit suicide, all that crazy stuff. It's like, that's what she might be. I'm really not. Maybe that's all satire, what the typical Japan consumer wants from the outside, but the real, it leads you into the middle of like this whole history that nobody knows about, of like what did the suicide pilots and mothers like go through at that time. Does that make sense?
Well, we all know, but
it's such a jumble.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get it until.
Well, I think they were all whoppers. I mean, it could be that the girl just made it all up because she had no friends, and she had mental health issues, and she just made up this huge whopper.
Well, it could be. It absolutely
she's a writer also.
When she does go back to school after spending the summer, month in the temple, and now she has her zazen superpower, right? And then she's interested in school again, and the kids kind of ignore her, and then 9/11 happens, and then everybody's thinking about that, and then everybody gets tired of that, and so then they turn their hostilities back on her. And then her father tries to commit suicide again, and he becomes obsessed with the falling man. All these tidbits thrown together. And then she goes she shaves her head, she goes into school, she stands up on her desk, and she screams, and they're all in awe, and their ears bleed, and that's her power, superpower. And then she walks out and never felt sorry for them. She walks out and never returns. So this is like manga stuff here. This is, it's not. So maybe the whole thing is a figment of her imagination and her way to. I don't know, but it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me.
It was
doesn't.
hard to take everything literally. There was so much.
Yeah, that's what
There
I
were so many
did.
tangents. And normally I hate the tangents because I've read a lot of books. I'm reading one now. It's just horrible. And it's just page after page after page after page of words. It's just too many words.
Yeah.
But for me, this author was such a good writer. The words were simple. It was easy. It was easy reading. So I didn't bother me I didn't feel like I was slogging through it like I do some books. But again, I'm open to the idea that the entire girl is a figment of the author's
Ruth's imagination.
Ruth didn't want to write the damn memoir of her mother's Alzheimer's. Ruth was afraid she was going to have Alzheimer's herself.
Yeah.
And this other thing was so much more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So she didn't write. It was a big diversionary tactic to not have to write her memoir.
Well, that's
and so
true.
Maybe she made the whole thing up.
Yeah, but she had physical evidence. She had this watch and these letters that who knows where this secret French journal ever got anywhere, really. It shouldn't be anywhere. And then
you mean the diary?
No, I mean the secret French diary.
Oh, of the pilot?
Of the pilot.
Yeah, of the pilot.
That kind of just appeared. Yeah.
Go anywhere? And how was she able to slip it back into the box of his, remains? And there's so much throwaway stuff. I think Joe kind of hit it when he said things that would kind of spark your interest. I was kind of looking forward to opportunities like this secret box that was so carefully sealed. Why was it so carefully sealed if it's just drift from the tsunami? That doesn't make any sense. And is a Hello Kitty lunchbox, which is probably a bento box, really that a girl that age? I'm not too sure, but maybe. And the watch, and there was just so much that was opportunities for secrecy or hidden away or isolated lives, and they just didn't really pan out. Maybe she's playing with ideas for her next novel.
Yeah, it was everything everywhere, everything everywhere all at once.
Everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah, I'm thinking as more Margie says it must be the woman, I'm thinking more and more it's the girl is the writer of all. Including her adult audience of one over
possibly. That's why I think Ruth
Canada.
Maybe was for a while there. I thought Ruth was the girl.
Yeah, they were one and the same. Yeah. And this is some kind of psychotic break or timeline. And all of a sudden, all this quantum stuff and these timelines and different realities. I don't buy it. I don't like that. I don't buy it.
Well, the quantum theory for me was like, Jed, like I said, I don't believe time travel. I don't enjoy it. I don't like any of that stuff. But the quantum kind of legitimized it, that actually these things actually could happen through time. I mean, what is real? What is space? What is perception? All of that. So I think she threw that in there to make it seem like could happen. There's some science here.
I found it a little too chaotic for me. Maybe I just don't get it. But on the other hand, I found it a little bit sloppy. Like, the mother's not acknowledged, but she is doing this stuff. Ruth's she talks about her mother moving her mother to the island, taking care of her. And then suddenly, like the last chapter of the book, she mentions a father. Never mentioned him until then. They're both buried on the island. How did he? What? I don't understand.
Ruth's father?
Ruth's father. Yeah, he's just mentioned one time. I think there were just I'm thinking that there are missed opportunities. Also, these constant power outages seem so contrived that Ruth is on the brink of finding evidence and then power outage. He's reading things by battery lamp or candle, and it's just. But maybe I'm not reading this and appreciating it on a high enough plane that I
Well,
think
I
that's
think it could be edited. I mean, I think there was too much in there, and the ending was disappointing. And
Oh yeah.
as a lot of things happen, it's just they end very quickly, and it's like, oh, okay, let's just wrap this up. I can't think of anything more to say, so let's
yeah.
just, I
What am
really
I
do
gonna
like
do?
my
How am I
husband
gonna
after all.
Yeah, yeah,
Huh,
it's
that's
okay.
a
Even though she's been walking on eggshells the whole time, you can't say anything wrong because his mental condition, and I don't know. And
that's
then the worst part for me was, and then I had a dream.
Oh no, I hate dreams. I hate dreams. Ugh, I can't. If we're already reading fiction, or we're already watching a movie, to put a dream in there drives me crazy.
Yeah,
But I needed it
absolutely.
to happen. I needed that to happen so that the girl
You
could be
you just
saved.
want to, so it'll fit into your universe. That's
So the
what you
girl would
want.
not commit suicide. That was the whole point.
Yeah. Well, I don't think she was going to commit suicide. She was talking. She was talking.
Well, and it was 10 years before. It was 10 years ago. I wasn't clear on the timing either. I think I
Yeah,
had to
the
go back and
timing,
read
it
that.
gave me headaches toward the end as well.
Yeah.
One thing that I did find interesting at the beginning is this book. Because I do a lot of repurposing, and do save fabrics from the landfill and make things from them and stuff like that. It occurs to me that this journal that she bought, it was a repurposed book. And so this was, when I thought about what this was, I thought, how good they're repurposing this. They're not just throwing it away. But it's Proust, who is like, next door to God when it comes to writing books. They tear out the contents, throw that away, and use the cover. And then she writes in this purple scrawl, English, in English, in this loopy letters. It's just like sacrilege. So the content is gone, replaced by this, and by a teenage girl in purple ink. I think it says something about the value of literature. It's Proust, for God's sakes.
Well, in
But
the end,
that
she says
wasn't.
she's going to. I couldn't remember how it ended. And so I
Mhm.
went back and just flipped the pages at the end. And there's one passage where she said, I'm going to study French so I can read Proust. And then I'm going to write the life of my great grandmother. I forgot that, or I glossed over it. But that told me she wasn't going to commit suicide.
Yeah, no,
She had these
she
plans.
somewhere along the line she says something about we stopped thinking about, committing suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that is I don't know, I think my mind is just blown open now thinking about it more. I got to think about it
That's
because
why
yeah,
you do
I'm
these things.
thinking of there's more like references of Japanese stuff to be consumed. Like yeah, the scene where she sits next to her uncle's ghost and he's kind of doesn't realize he's there even. That's like a common thing in like the anime, the cartoons where just in the forest, in the woods, in nature, just like a melancholy ghost just like appears and it's not scary. It's this kind of it's a weird common thing where you just experience like an ancestor or something.
Uh-huh.
And also some of the things were reminding me of there's another guy called Haruki Murakami who's famous. Do you guys know him? Murakami?
Murakami was a novelist.
Yeah,
Murakami.
he's popular.
He was
Yeah,
popular in the 80s, I bet.
he's alive now. He's got like a lot of books that are recent-ish.
Oh,
But yeah, lots of non-Japanese like him. I've read one of his books, but one thing I couldn't get over was how he likes to like over comment on the quality of things. Like he'll say she was wearing a Ralph Lauren outfit with the summer season shoes of blah blah blah, and it's like who is this for? Or the radio was playing the Glenn Gould Goldberg variations recorded in 19 and you're like, what? Why do you need all this detail? So it's almost like he likes to flex his knowledge on sophisticated background information or something. And that's in this book too. I thought she's doing that sometimes, and I thought like is she kind of poking at that? There's lots of the only thing that seemed truly original I'm realizing now is that those notes of the terrible training in the military of the uncle. And also the stuff about how the grandmother was the first like feminist and like anarchist in history or something, and everything else was kind of referencing. There's this, there's there's meditating, there's and also the funeral was
rituals.
Yeah, that
the
was like, oh,
rituals
that's
for the funeral.
That's there were I guess I'm saying there's things that were seemed definitely like, here you go, Japan fan, eat this up. And then there were things that were like, here's the real thing I want to say that maybe nobody knows, or even things that maybe that's what I'm saying, like, oh, even I don't know about that, or what is this, I've never thought about that. Meanwhile,
that's why I wanted you guys to read it, because I think I referred it to you before I finished it. It's just like, oh, Japan.
Oh yes, that's right. You said I don't know where this is going.
But have to go back to Japanese person goes back to Japan. Oh, Fukushima's in it. Oh, the tsunami. It's like, so it resonates, they're just things. And even I was hooked because it was like, oh, she was from Sunnyvale. Okay, I'm gonna read this book. So those things all kind of make a book interesting for me, at least keep me reading. I can relate to it.
Well, they resonate, but then it just doesn't really go anywhere. And it's like, I was thinking, oh, there's going to be some kind of come together with this drift from Sendai and Fukushima, from the tsunami, and there's going to be a uniting of something, or something's going to go on here. That's what I kept saying, is this the theme that's going to, the thread that's going to continue? And then I thought, well, I guess Zen is the main thing, which I don't get. I don't understand Zen, and I don't understand how Now goes to the temple for a summer, and she gains through Zazen and mental strength and physical strength. I can get some of that, the discipline and the strength, but it doesn't go anywhere. She goes back, and with her superpower, she imagines that she overcomes her bullies in school. But did she? I just think there's this peppering of Japanese, recognizable items, or American recognizable items, and then, but there's no thread, or there's no consistency. But maybe the point is that it's not consistent, and I'm willing to.
Well, and we don't know
that.
where the diary came from. They never did resolve that. They just said, well, it could be from is it called a gyre?
No, that's different. That's something else. So then they're talking about oceans and the drift from the tsunami.
Yeah.
Still coming. But the gyre is that so whirly thing of garbage that's in the Pacific Ocean.
That doesn't have to do with the tsunami, because I had never heard that word before. I forgot if I did, but that's something different then.
Yeah,
but
while we're here in the ocean, by the way, there's a gyre.
But they were expecting debris, right, to come to our shores.
They thought it was early. They thought these people that found this wrapped up, sealed, nearly pristine book. It was earlier than they expected any wash up to occur.
It was kind of a message in a bottle, and the author concocts this whole story from the single piece of paper in the bottle that goes across the seven seas.
And you create this entire, that would make some sense to me if somebody would give me a hint early on.
That's a trick, I guess, whether to take these things literally or what is this? Like, I'm reading Salman Rushdie's book now. It's so awful. Is it an allegory? Is it true? Is it a fable? Is it history? What the heck is this?
Yeah, give me a hint.
And it's just page after page after page of just stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
What for me, the most fictional thing that was too fantastic for reality was where the father invented a program that could like scrub the internet of any trace of you. I thought, come on, that's just not possible. He said,
really?
"Oh, I mean, if someone told me if you have a scandal and someone approaches you, hey, if you pay me, this app will get rid of all that." I would think
scrub it.
I would think,
I see,
you're selling a impossible thing.
This is why it's got to be the girl's imagination, because what's on the internet is that that auction for her panties, and it's on the internet. It never goes away. So her father, who tried to outbid in the auction, tried to save her from that. So he invented something technological that could get rid of that. Yeah. Yeah, and even the Haruki number 1, the kamikaze pilot, you know, he's just so full of self-sacrifice and filial piety that I can hardly stand it. My dear mother, and I just, I mean, it's so, and of course it's supposed to be dated and all that, but it was just so, the two things, self-sacrifice, sacrifice for sacrifice sake, and filial piety, and I worship my mother. It was just too much.
But those letters were written to be like they were read by the bosses, like they
by
wanted
the censors,
to see. Yeah,
sure.
so he had to say that stuff.
Oh,
so
right.
he would send his like sentiments of like, don't worry about me, or I just hope I'm worthy of whatever, and don't cry for me. But then the compelling part was, I guess the translated from French one, where he just said we just would get beaten up every day,
humiliated,
until we're
just humiliated and beaten and horrible things. And Tadashi told me a long time ago, they only gave them enough gas to get there anyway in the plane. There was no coming back anyway.
Well, that to me is not Japanese. That's just the male war machine. That's, we watch I see stuff on TV. I see movies where men are just browbeating other men who were soldiers to
toughen them up or whatever.
To toughen them up and to be killing machines, and all of that is inhumane. It's universal, I think.
The writing says how they practiced how to like hold a rifle to shoot in their own like face, and they would use their big toe to pull the trigger, which is what in Clint Eastwood's movie about the Japanese side of the war, there's a character who does that in this crazy way with one shoe off. I'm like, wow, that's really weird. And I guess that's accurate according to this book, that they would that's how they would do it, I guess.
Well, it is, that fanatical side that's not universal, that is representative of Japanese. That no other country has had kamikaze pilots, and we grew up. They found Japanese soldiers still hiding out on an island in 1960s. Remember, never give up and that kind of thing. So so that that was, I just thought, again, like love hotels and those hostess bars and you pimping out a 15-year-old. That's just the see me side of Japan that we think of as gardens and beautiful temples and lovely this and that, and here let's get down and dirty. Let's see what it's really like.
Yeah. So was the author was born here in the United States? Then she wasn't born. She's not Japanese
the author
born.
Actually, I don't know.
I think she was from Connecticut. I read one of her books years ago called My Year of Meats.
Is that Ruth Ozeki?
Yeah.
My Year of Meats. I've heard of that book.
Meats, yeah, where she it's kind of like a nonfiction, but she explores the meat, the beef and meat packing, not packing, but the growing of beef. Which I can barely remember the book, but I know I read it a long time ago.
Yeah, I think it was popular when I was teaching at Chabot, along with the guy that ate all the McDonald's for a year. That book and this My Year of Meats, they talked about that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't, and I deliberately don't read any of these blurbs that are in books. I try not to
me too.
Get influenced, but maybe I will afterwards and maybe give it. But this is exactly why you do these kinds of podcasts, so that you can get the insights from other people. So you put a new slant on it, and it's very different. So that opens both of our minds a little bit to something that we were not receptive of in the, before we talked.
Yeah.
I didn't even know the writer's name was Ruth, and that
yes,
I didn't.
And
know
her husband's name is Oliver.
Yeah. So that is them.
So it's I believe it's biographical.
Yeah, that strengthens Margie's case. But
maybe she already has Alzheimer's.
Well, that was kind of in the book, right? She was having these weird dreams, and I mean, the words disappeared off the page. And so,
Well, yeah.
they can't
Or that,
explain that. So
and
she herself thought I've got Alzheimer's. I mean, I know those words were there before.
and then happily enough, here's a little, what's her name? Was her name Marge or Madge or something? Who giving her, this is just
So,
writer's block in reverse. It's, you have to, I think he's like, tap your
yeah,
feet together, and then there's no, I do believe in fairies or something like that. I don't know. It just kind of
yeah,
drove me crazy.
yeah. No, I agree. It was in and out of reality, and some things were far fetched. I wanted to know about the Japanese middle school experience too, but I think she was in an extreme because
Yeah.
of her own problems.
It's like it seems it's unimaginable, it's incomprehensible, but as a teacher here, I have had some incomprehensible students where it's just like, what are you doing? Like, this is how you're going to exist? Like, I've had a student who could not enter the room. She would try to join by looking through the window of the door, which is like a heavy, pressurized door that, shuts it good. And I'd just see she's like looking in the window, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I'd tell the
Yeah.
bosses, like, what is your plan with this person? You're just going to take her money? Because it was like a post high school. Like, if you didn't get into university, you just kind of go here to pretend, I guess. And I'm like, you're really just going to take, what is your plan? And they're like, oh, she seems to be all right. And
Yeah.
no news is good news was there, but that's not uncommon in every business ever. If it doesn't seem broken. And then I had another student who I was like, hey, what? You're all right? He melts down, goes in the hallway, and just has like literally out of like a cartoon or anime, like, Kya! Like screams like he was about to transform into a higher power being or something. And then I was like, dude, like, relax. And it was just crazy. And I'm like, what's wrong?
We have these kids that are goth kids.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. There's
kids that get crazy at that age.
Yeah. Luckily, they don't have guns, Joe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but like,
well, I'm glad you read the book. I mean, there was no pressure for me to read it. I just thought I have to tell them about this book because there's so many familiar points about it.
I was looking forward. I thought, the tale for the time being, I kind of prepared myself for kind of time travel or, some kind of slipping around with reality a little bit, but it really read like real. And then all of a sudden is interjected these ghosts and this dream and, the remains, and then the pages disappearing. And the buildup wasn't adequate. At least it wasn't for me, or the hints along the way weren't adequate for me.
Yeah.
It just kind of like, I got to wrap this up. What am I going to, I have a dream. And it just, it really made me mad. All this supernatural and quantum physics all of a sudden is there. And all of a sudden, Oliver, knows everything. It knows about different realities and all that kind of stuff. It was just odd.
It was a lot of the books that I'm reading now, and I'm, on my book club, but I don't choose the books. The jumping back and forth between time drives me crazy because there's no warning, there's no titles, there's no different setting. It's just who's talking now, and when I was this then, it was this. It's very common. It's annoying. None of these narratives are just straight line. They're just jumping.
We may look back on this, or people may look back on this in 50 years or 100 years and see this as representative of the times that
everything just deconstructed, disjointed.
Yeah, or fluid, or escapist.
Yeah. And in a lot of TV shows I'm watching, the dead wife always comes back. I mean, they show the dead wife, even though she may be a star in episode 1 and she dies, we could be sure she's going to come back in ghost form.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of that going on now too.
Yeah. It might be indicative of, experimentation in the form, or separation from reality because of the pressures of COVID. And even if it wasn't COVID in this particular case, being remote and isolated and taking care of someone who's sick.
Yeah.
It fits, or I can plaster COVID on top of that. So it
Well, in
might be
the end,
something like that.
it's an art form. It's like Picasso rearranged all the parts of the body. People thought it was great. And so we might be going through a phase like that where
Maybe.
you just can't tell a
Maybe.
story.
I just remember when I first read about my old Jiko, I said, Tasha, what's my old Jiko? What could Jiko mean? I didn't have the kanji, so I didn't know what it was. But could it be like tutor? Could it be like mentor? Could it be, sensei? And then I find out much, much later it's her grandmother or great grandmother.
Oh.
And
Well-
I don't know why. This is a very unusual name, Jiko. It's very strange. So, but I kept trying to figure out what that was that she referred
And it's
to
her
him.
great grandmother, right? It's her father's grandmother.
I think it's her father's grandmother. I don't think
Yeah,
it's
so
her.
it's
Is it her father's mother?
It's her father's grandmother.
I
Yeah.
think so. Let's see.
I
'Cause
don't know
did
what
a
happened to
family
his
tree.
parents.
Yeah,
I
they
never
had-
do that.
Jiko had
So
two kids.
because Jiko was the mother of Haruki 1, the kamikaze pilot, and
Right.
she's 104, and then a daughter, Sugako, who married, and she had Haruki 2, and he married, and they had Naoko.
And now what
actually.
happened to his mother? She's another one's never mentioned in the chain.
No.
Yeah,
Because the two Hirokis, I don't know if I'm saying that right, he's his great uncle.
Haruki, her father is Haruki 2, and her uncle,
Her great uncle, yeah.
great uncle.
Because it's her father's
it's his
uncle.
uncle. Yeah. So that's why I thought maybe part of the reason that she came back from the temple with renewed strength and able to, manage herself in school was she had a sense of her own heritage. She kind of knew some of her history. And so she wasn't an outsider anymore.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
no, that was, because then she shaves her head and screams and they all bleed from their ears.
I forgot. I don't even remember that part. Maybe I gloss over the stuff I don't
You
wanna- I
gloss
don't wanna
over
read.
the stuff that was unbelievable or something.
There's one thing that is interesting, and a lot of times the grandparent provides the stability for the grandchild if it's dysfunctional with the parents, especially.
Mhm.
And that wasn't my case. We didn't have grandparents, but I'm in my studies of the internment, and I know the Holocaust. None of those stories came out from parent to child. It was not until the grandchildren started questioning
Mhm.
and being curious that the grandparents felt, and time had gone by, felt
Mhm.
okay about talking about it, because they would.
Mhm.
The Japanese that I knew here, none of their parents would ever talk about it.
Right.
It was the grandchildren that brought it out. So, and
Yeah.
that was a little something that I noticed there. It's often the grandmother can be the refuge.
Yes, absolutely. And
you don't have the
the
parents.
objective one. Well, here they were. Here's this intense nuclear family in this 2-room apartment. They're sleeping all in the same room in Japan, and they have a much lower standard of living than they had in Sunnyvale, of course.
Yeah.
And of course, he's out of a job, so his position in the family as supporter, breadwinner, is taken away, much like internment men.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
understanding. And so, yeah, sure, the grandmother, that going to a temple, living a completely different life and getting a different take on things was definitely a respite for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also thought the death scene of the great grandma was pretty intense, and I don't of course maybe remember the scene in As I Lay Dying, our first podcast.
Did she ever
where-
die?
Yeah,
That book, I
Faulkner
can't remember now.
writes her eyes laid her she laid back and her eyes went out as though someone had blown out gently 2 candles or something like that.
Mm,
And
mm.
so I was remembering that from Jiko's last breaths. Man, I thought I didn't remember much about this book, but that really opened it up. How, of course, it's all exaggerated. She's a little annoying little dipshit. So and yeah, of course, it's like my mom doesn't know anything. My dad is super annoying. Like, just hurry up and do it already. And everybody hates me in my school. Even my teachers hate me. Like, once you said that, because that's where I was like, come on, this is ridiculous. The teacher doing it. This is hardcore.
hard to
kind
believe.
of a fan service to Japanophiles, like, oh, even the teachers are in on it? Oh my God, I heard, is that right? I think so, I heard it. I saw it somewhere. But once you said that because kids say that, my teacher hates me. And I'm like, if a teacher hates a student, he's going to be fired. Like, what? I mean, you can't overtly hate your students, I think. But so then that really was the crack that said, oh, this is all just her, grandiose view of it.
Exaggerating.
Yeah.
Like I have a favorite saying, these young people think they know everything and they don't know anything, but they think they've got it all figured out. They just don't. I mean, they think they know it all and they don't know a thing.
Yeah. It's like when kids say to their parents, you don't know me at all. And Julie's response, I always thought, I know you inside, outside, upside, downside. What do you mean I don't know you? I know all about you.
Well, our mother would say, I don't care to know you. I mean, she would just say, I remember she would say, I've got plenty of friends. I've got my own friends. I don't need you as my friend.
Yeah, that's because our big threat would be, the kids' big threat would be, you won't be my friend anymore. She'd say, it's okay, I got a lot of friends.
Oh.
Yeah, she was pretty hardcore. I was looking for, something tsunami related, earthquake related, coming together, and it just didn't pan out. But I do like your theory that it's either all in Ruth's mind or it's all in Nowell's mind, and whichever it is makes it more palatable. But give me a hint or give me a big revelation.
Well, and you're right, because she throws in a lot of science or pseudoscience, so it's like, oh, okay, I guess this could happen. And I didn't read all the footnote. I read the appendices in the back, but all the kanji, I guess, is I didn't bother to look back at any of the meanings of any of that. But it kind of gave an air of legitimacy to it if it had footnotes, like,
yes, and appendices too, same thing. Yeah, it makes it looks like this is legit, but I don't think it is. Yeah,
no. I've read books like that too, where they act as if they're telling a true story, and it's not, but it's written as if it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not to the end that you realize this is all a story. None of this
but
was
there
real.
has to be something more overt, unless this is just too subtle for our stupid Western minds, which is another insult.
I think it's a woman in the pandemic who had too much time on her hands, like the rest of us.
That could be. I'm
even thinking that like the kind of mundane chapters about Ruth are like intentional, because that's another tone that Japan superfans are like, where they just like, oh, over there, what do you drink your coffee and you just, have your boring life, but here is where, whatever, they kind of over like appreciate that it's like a utopia or just just an amazing place, and everything over there is just like bland and boring.
You're talking about Americans' image of Japanese culture?
Well, yeah,
she plays Japan, into that. She's writing for Americans who think Japan
maybe
is something other than it is.
Yeah, I was getting annoyed by the boring, like, why is she doing this? And it's kind of like,
which she?
Why is the writer putting in these kind of unbalanced like, and then she, Oliver leaned over the sofa and put down his coffee and then said to her, and I'm like, why, I don't even care.
Why is he here?
I don't care what he's going to say at this point. You just described how he leaned to say something, annoying. And
well, that was when the pages disappeared, and he said that's because you haven't written them yet.
Did he say that?
Didn't she say the words disappeared off the page?
Yeah,
she said the words disappeared.
And he said that's because you haven't written them yet, which is so cryptic.
He said that?
I think so. I think her husband said that.
Oh,
my God.
So maybe
every
like
once in a while.
Every once in a while, he'd say something. He was driving her crazy. He was gaslighting her.
He drives me crazy. He drove me crazy, that's for sure.
And she said stuff like, oh, he's so always right and smarter than me and the smartest person. Oh, I hate that about him, but I like it. And I'm like, I had to check like who. I don't know.
It fizzled at the end. I mean, as far as her, oh yeah, he's nice. I like him. We're going to stay here. Because she
Okay,
wanted
wait
to
a
go
minute.
back to she needed to go back to Manhattan.
I've still got a few pages left to go. Muriel shook her head. The Muriel is the big sage here.
Is she the neighbor?
Yeah, just somebody on the island. The other opportunity was everybody knows everybody's business on the island. Everybody knows about the watch and about the book, and everybody knows about it. But that was just kind of an irritant, and that's all. Because in Japan, everybody knows what you're doing. Everybody knows everybody's business because they're watching all the time. That's why there's such low crime. But everybody knows, and but nothing happened with that. Everybody knows your business.
It was just
on the
local
island.
color, I guess, just a detail.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he said this because you haven't written them yet. Go to bed.
Yeah,
You haven't. Wait. Ruth fell silent. That's it. Actually, my point was really about Now and Chico. The Japanese take these memorials really seriously. Old Chico, no. She was there. She knew the wave was coming. She grabbed some of Muji's plastic bags. Oh, I didn't know that she speculated a actual save. She grabbed some of Muji's plastic bags and stuffed her most precious things inside, her diary, Haruki's letters, and the watch. What's the point in speculating, Oliver said. You haven't even finished reading. Muriel lowered her binoculars and looked at Ruth aghast. You haven't finished reading? No, I've still got a few pages left to go. I don't understand you. I would have sat down and read the damn thing. Yeah, me too, Ruth. Me too, Muriel. Sat down and read the thing from start to finish.
Well, and he was reading it with her at her same pace, right? It was
like she was reading it aloud to him in bed every night.
Okay.
Hmm.
And those were just what she wrote that day.
Well,
I mean, that was in the back of my mind.
This one might be one to go back to.
I think we say that every time, but we never go back.
Well, this is the most I've gone back of any book because I don't read anything twice. But it would pay to answer some questions.
Well, with your insight, it might be valuable to reread it. Maybe,
yeah,
but I don't think so.
even now, knowing that the writer's name and the other character they're both named Ruth. I don't know. I didn't realize that.
And the husband's the same name too.
Yeah, right. That is them.
Ruth Ozeki's husband's name's Oliver.
I think so.
Oh, you're not hiding things very well here. Okay.
Well,
in general, I have to say that I lost patience with it. I want to say that.
Yeah.
Not exactly lost interest, not exactly hated it, but I lost patience with it. And I guess that I like plot. And I think that if this doesn't contribute to moving the story forward and giving us more insight into the characters, why is it there?
Yeah, especially if it throws you off.
Scenery. Yeah, then it's just distraction and scenery. Yeah. But I like what you said about the young girl, going into such detail about her life, and because that's the supreme most important thing in the world. And so I can envision this being written by a teenage girl, except that there is a difference in the writing, the mature Ruth and the young girl. But that's an interesting concept. You're giving her the benefit of the doubt, which I sort of didn't.
Well, I mean, a lot of things were crossing my mind. Like, okay, was Ruth this girl when she was a child? Was she born in Japan? Did she have this experience herself?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe she does have mental illness and she's recalling it all or something. I don't know. It wasn't a straight narrative. I mean, you had to kind of, okay, there's a trick at the end. What's it going to be? And so you go down all these garden paths.
Yes.
And then it just is what it is. And you never really figure it out.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was easy to read. That's what
it was an easy read.
I've read too many books lately that I am infuriated. Every time I turn the page, I'm mad because it's just all words. There's no dialogue. Sometimes there's no dialogue. And if there is, there's no quotation marks and no indentation. Drives me up the wall. And I'm just mad when I read it. But this
you get mad, and I think you get mad for a good reason, because this, writing, like art, is supposed to be communicative. It's a communicative act. Otherwise, you keep a journal and you don't do anything with it but bury it. But if you want to write for the public, it has to be more or less understandable. If it's
Yeah.
deliberately obscure, it's a failure as a writer,
And it's
not
insulting to
as
the
a
reader.
reader.
It's
Yeah.
insulting that this reader has to wade through this and figure out who's talking, what time is it, where is it,
Oh,
is
speaking
it a
of,
direct quote or is she thinking? And
Yeah.
it's insulting.
Margie should have been on our podcast with that. Was it Ministry of the Future? That's where I was infuriated.
Oh, he was so angry about that book.
Because of the style of writing.
It was
Yeah,
just like,
it was.
Or-
Yeah.
what is this? Who cares? What would, meanwhile,
Don't waste
and
my time.
this other person somewhere else, we'll never hear from them again.
Yeah.
But speaking of easy to read, I've got my next pick. And this one, actually,
Okay.
you have the option. You can choose this one, or you can choose The Mystery Door. Okay, so, but my
So
number
what are you
one,
going to tell us?
number one is, it's called The Complete Idiot's Guide to the Talmud.
Oh my
Oh,
God. Are you inviting me to read this thing?
sure.
Oh, if you want to. Yeah. Have you ever read one of these? Have you ever read one of those blah blah for dummies or?
I hate those. I reject those. I boycott those. I would never be seen holding a book like that in my hand.
Have you ever read one?
No.
Well, here
Well, they're
we
just
go.
like they're a reference book. I mean, you don't sit down and read them, do you?
I don't
No,
know.
but just
I've
having
never,
the title
yeah.
in my hand. This is a book for dummies, and I'm holding it in my hand. No.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so there is an inherent prejudice against this type. This is even like the copycat. It's called The Complete Idiot's Guide. So if dummy isn't strong enough,
No.
and so I was looking at them, and the one that caught my eye was the Talmud, which we know
That's
the Torah is like the first 5 books of the Christian Bible, but the Talmud, what the hell is that? And I think it's like a collection of like articles and arguments by the rabbis over time that are significant enough that like this is like a real serious text or collection. And
like the Gospels, maybe.
I
Like
don't
the
even
Old Testament and the New Testament.
I don't even know.
You know how when they study in the Jewish when they study the Torah and they pick it apart and they're analyzed like Jesuits do to Catholic. And so this is going to be an exercise in frustration. I can tell you that right now.
Well, the Torah
Can we read it
is-
with an accent?
Yeah. The Torah is the original stories of who knows if they're real people or not. And the Talmud, it says one sentence, the Talmud is arguably one of the most enigmatic texts known to humankind. So you hooked me.
And you want to read this?
You had me at enigmatic.
Oh my God.
Well, we'll see how it goes. So no interest in the mystery door?
I am kind of interested in the mystery door, but I'm afraid to ask because it might be worse than this.
The mystery door is The Apology by Plato, which is much, much shorter. Do you
How
know
much
that one?
longer is this one?
This one's
I've
like
never read Plato.
This one's like 350 pages or something. But it's lots of like, it actually has little, no, it's actually maybe like 300.
So it has diagrams. Does it have pictures?
It has lots of, bullet points and Talmudic tip of the day or little like text boxes like a school
Sorry.
book.
What do you got? The Talmud? The
Thank you.
Torah?
I've got
Oh,
Plato's Republican Dialogues. Here's the
You have
apology here, but I don't think that's what it is.
Apologia.
Plato's Thought.
Yeah.
I don't think I have the apology.
Didn't you just say you had one? Something? I thought you
Well,
just
this
said
one
it.
is called Republican Dialogues.
Okay. And what you said, didn't you say one
And,
after it?
It says the apology down here, but I think
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
different book.
That's in there,
I
yeah.
think that's a different book.
Well, look at your
Well,
table of contents. That might
This
be
is
there.
the Republic, and this is the Dialogues.
The
And this
apology
one-
is like a short, it's actually Socrates' speech in defense of himself when he was accused of corrupting the people, and he has to defend himself. So it might not be an actual book, but it's like it's one of the texts of Plato. Yeah, the Latin word apologia, it means kind of like the defense or the explanation or something. Or it could be called that. So he's like, he has to explain himself.
Yeah, he's not apologizing. He's explaining. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you pick, Joe, because you're not going to get off the hook and put it on us. And
Talmud it is.
Oh God.
All right. So
all right.
I'll see.
Talmud.
Yep.
Complete Idiot's Guide to the Talmud next time.
Yep. Put on your black
Probably
hats.
Wouldn't hurt us.
Yeah, you're gonna go to heaven not knowing what the hell the Talmud was. I mean, yeah, I don't know. So anyway, that's it for this episode.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I may or may not join next time. You might want to invite someone else. But it was very fun. It was very enjoyable.
It's fun, isn't it? And
even if you don't like a book, you get something out of it.
Oh, you proved that this time. That's for sure. Yeah, you opened our eyes. Because we just sit here and get snarky, but you stopped it. You blew Joe's mind.
Yep.
So you're welcome. You're welcome back to come back next time when we read the Complete Idiot, not even idiot, Complete Idiot Guide. This I have to put a brown wrapper on. Guide to the Talmud. Okay.
All righty. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Joe.
Good to see you too. We'll catch you all next time on
It's on the flip side.
on Book Pod.
Bye bye.